Lemi.
Hello. Hello, Milos.
Hey man, welcome to Serbia Podcast. And just for the listeners of the podcast, I'm talking with Mr. Lemi Orhan Ergin, who is speaking to me today from Turkey. Am I correct?
Yes, right, Istanbul.
Istanbul, perfect. And you know, the way I know Lemi, I know is maybe an overstatement. We've been talking via email for a couple of days, but the way I've heard of Lemi was from his presentation that he had in Bosnia Agile Day, which occurred pretty recently. I think maybe 1.5 months ago or something. Yeah. I've heard some great things. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to listen to you, man. But you know, I have some very, very good friends who went there, told me some very, very nice things about you. So just to introduce you to the Serbian IT community, can you tell us who are you, where you're from, and you know what are you doing these days?
Sure. My name is Lemi. I've been developing software since 2001, and software development is my passion. In fact, I'm searching for the answer of several questions in my development life. Therefore, I'm investigating how to feed my passion. And then at the end, I noticed that building high quality software high quality software is my passion, and I try to find ways to build high quality software, and I encounter many terms and ideas like software craftsmanship and agile and all those stuff, and I really loved these terms, and I start to work on them. So today I'm earning my life as a consultant and a trainer in ACM, a leading training and consulting company in Turkey. And I spent almost 10 years of my life as a software developer at Sony Europe and eBay Turkey.
Hey, tell me something. If I'm not mistaken, you are a part of the local Agile community, right?
Yes, right. I was the product owner for 2 years on Agile Turkey Summit. This year, more than 700 people just attended to the conference, and I am a core member of Agile Turkey community. I love being involved in community activities. That's the reality, I guess, of my life. And also, I'm the founder of Software Craftsmanship Turkey community, which we start to do lots of coding kata activities in these days.
You know what? There's a question that a lot of people asks me from time to time. So I have to ask you this question: are you a programmer or not?
I call it myself not a programmer but a developer.
Okay.
Not sure if developer and programming or development are both showing the same points, but from my perspective, I'm doing tons of activities in addition to programming. So I love being involved in DevOps activities, feeding DevOps culture in the companies, and enjoying the teamwork with the team. So not only the hardcore coding, but also the soft part or the team-wise parts of the development life. I really love to be involved in.
Awesome. Now, I've heard a couple of things here. I've heard you were developing software. I heard you had the role of product owner. You also like DevOps. So you're a versatile guy. And if I'm not mistaken, can you call yourself an agilist? Is that the term these days?
I mean, I call it myself as a developer in a journey for software craftsmanship, and I really loved the all aspects of Agile, and I call it myself also Agile evangelist or enthusiast. I can say.
Okay, so I will not call you agilist. I thought that was the way you guys like to be called, but I apologize. It looks like it's reserved for a small number of people. I happen to know. So not a problem. It's not a problem. But so when you say you're an evangelist for Agile, does that mean you've been applying Agile culture and potentially Agile processes in your development life or your team life? Where did you have the chance to apply these?
Yeah, during my career, I try to apply all those practices in my daily development life with my team. But in the last few years, as a consultant, I'm working with tons of different companies, and there are tons of different teams having trouble in many tons of areas. Mainly, I give advices. Yeah, I give advices them, and I try to teach how to build a culture of love and of passion for software development.
Well, in this particular case, I couldn't have found a better person to talk to, because I've been encountering, as you say, tons of issues. Tons of problems within all kinds of development teams. I even have a kind of a bullet list of things I've concluded about every possible team I've ever worked with maybe a couple of exceptions. But okay. Let's talk about Bosnia Agile Day. I think you had a very interesting topic. You named it, if I'm not mistaken, "Let the elephants leave the room." Remove waste in software development. Yeah. So I gotta start by asking, who or what are these elephants?
Okay. Yeah. So there's an English idiom like the elephants in the room. Therefore, it is adapted. The name is adapted from that idiom. So there are tons of elephants in our life. Those are hidden elephants, and sometimes you see them, but sometimes you don't. But you feel them, that they are sitting next to you. And but most of the time, you or your friends or we are all together, we ignore them. So we try to live with them. We try to get used to live with them. And at the end of the day, we see that in our daily work, we produce very, very, very few amount of value, and most of the value are just messed up with those elephants. So it's a kind of metaphor, and I really love it. And I mapped that elephant concept with waste. So elephants are wastes in our daily life. And we have to find them if they are just ghosts or hidden or just we cannot see. We have to find them and eliminate them. So we have to find ways to eliminate them too. So in that presentation, I try to show what can be those elephants are, and how we can eliminate them. Just few tips and tricks on.
Yeah, you know what? I have just one comment on the name of the presentation. Like, and on one thing you said, like these elephants are here and we are ignoring them. I thought to myself, like, this is every developer ever, like every possible developer ever. Yeah. Like starting with copy-paste solutions, from shortcuts, I don't know, from just so many things you can do when developing, and you. The thing is, you actually know it's an elephant, whether you call it like that or think about it like, it's an elephant, but you're like, yes, I might get back to it later, or, I gotta get the job done, etc., etc. And of course, there are people who only work with elephants. Like, I remember this funny 9gag something where there was a software for like programming without coding, which would be something like you do a search and it automatically copies from Stack Overflow and builds code.
Cool idea.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about waste. You identified these elephants being the waste we produce, and you also said that during our daily routines we don't produce enough value. So what I'm inclined to ask now would be two things. What is this waste exactly? And what is this value we are missing on? What is this value that we are supposed to bring to the team, to the customer or the client or whatever the end party is?
Yeah. Okay. So waste is everything not adding value to the customer. So what is the value for the customer? So I call it I call it the solutions that we provide to the customers, because customers really don't care about the methodology that we use or the languages, the technologies we use. Not really, but they really search for their problems to be solved, and they really want their problems to be solved. And the real value from a developer's perspective is solving those problems. It starts from understanding the real problem, and then building a solution or designing a solution first, then building a solution. And we have to admit that we are not perfect, and all our solutions won't be perfect. Therefore, we have to do small iterations. We have to build our solutions in small iterations and get feedback again and again and again from customer and from everyone that involved in that solution to reach a real working solution. Therefore, if you eliminate waste, it means many things. One is you can work less to build a value, the same value that you produced before, or you work at the same amount of time and you deliver a bigger amount of waste. Bigger amount of value. So that is my perspective for waste and the value.
Okay, so let's briefly let's talk about the guy or the girl, the person producing the code. Okay, who is likely to produce significant waste because of shortcuts, quote unquote easy solutions, applying copy pasting from the internet, not using standards, or using them in a wrong way, building anti-patterns or whatever. So, I think you also put that in your presentation. You kind of highlighted that there are people who are sometimes scared of touching their own source code.
Yes.
From time to time, you do need to venture back into that piece of whatever is it that you produced and make a change. And for example, one of the and we might talk about different things that I've noticed about teams, but let me tell you about one thing I've noticed. People seem to be refactoring only when they have to fix a bug. You know what I'm saying? This is when they are venturing back into their source code. I have to fix a bug, and then I go through debugging, blah, blah, blah. I figured that there's something wrong with the piece of code. And this is the time when I refactor. So which means they don't refactor along the way. They just build layers upon layers. So why do people do this? Why do you think teams do this, not only individuals. And let me tell you, from my experience, a lot of people do this. Why do you think this is the case?
Yeah, interesting. Because Robert C. Martin mentioned a very, very interesting quote in one of his talks. And when I heard, I said, wow. He said, developers have irresponsible tolerance. So they know that those activities, I mean, the way of their work is not the right thing, but they are tolerating these, and they don't really do anything to improve their way of working. They really know that that they have to improve the whole way of working and what they produce, but they don't do anything about it. So from my perspective, I can see a lack of discipline and passion. So and motivation. So from software craftsmanship mindset, if you have motivation, discipline, and passion. So if you have three things, you can be a craftsman. So you can improve yourself continuously, not on yourself and then the things that you produce. So it's like a three leg. So all of them should be available. Therefore, when we introduce practices, we cannot achieve. So introducing practices is not is not the correct thing, because if you leave the team by themselves, they will follow the old habits, and therefore we have to build a discipline on top of those practices, which can be established by doing mentorship or doing pair programming, by doing mob programming and continuously doing reviews of what we've done so far. From Agile perspective, reviewing all the stuff that we produce and reviewing all the activities and habits of our development life. It's called are called in many ways. We can call it review meetings, or we can call it retrospective meetings. All of them, in all those meetings, we review something to improve our product, to improve the way that we work with the team, and such.
Okay, one question though. These retrospectives, or whatever you want to call them, these will be focused on the code as well, right? Not only at the product, but also at the code, architecture maybe. Sure.
Yes, why not? So in retrospective meetings, the team can decide to do a mob programming for a few hours a week. Then they can experience how it can go, and later on they can decide. What I noticed from in development teams is that people really scared of doing experiments. They really don't like doing experiments. What I mean is, let's do pair programming. Let's be pairs and spend a few hours together and resolve this issue. But we have to stick on the pair programming dynamics. Like we have to switch the keyboard regularly, and you are the navigator, I'm the driver. Later on we will switch. And when you start negotiating with other people, you notice that people really scared of doing new stuff or doing new experiences, having new experiences. So what I really love, from Agile perspective, empiricism really improves everything. We have to try, we have to experiment and see how it will go.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes it's just hard to explain to a developer the values, the benefits of, for example, pair programming. It's ridiculous. You know, all those things all those things you do when coding, which is all those things you just take for granted. As you said yourself, something like responsible tolerance. Like you tolerate your own crap. Yeah, like on a regular basis. And when you're paired with someone, you get the chance to explain yourself to someone. Why did you do that? You know, instead of doing something else, and you have to articulate that so that the other party would understand. And while doing so, there's a multitude of things that can go in a good way. You might understand. Okay, I get it. I need to fix that crap. You know, you might get a confirmation from your pair. You know, a confirmation that you've done the right thing, or how to avoid doing the wrong thing in the future, etc., etc. But people are generally wrong, you know, like scared of even anyone like venturing into their code. Like I've even heard people being opposed to using versioning, you know, and pushing committing their code to a repo or something. You know, like, you know, why? Who's going to be looking at my code? So I mean, these things happen. So I'm inclined to ask, although I'm pretty sure there's no real response. I'm inclined to ask, how do you overcome this perhaps innate fear that people have from trying new stuff such as pair programming, which cannot be more useful? Like, I've never seen a thing more useful than that, when two engineers sit down and work out a solution to a problem between them, even when and even better when they're not paired by skill and experience level. Then it's even better when someone has a bit more experience, like the other party really learns a whole lot of things. Sorry for my monologue. It just had to come out.
I asked myself for tons of the times in my life, and while I was working at Sony, at eBay Turkey, and with tons of other companies as a consultant, I'm really focusing on building a culture for development. So if you don't build a culture or cultivate the culture in the company, it's impossible to adapt those practices in the teams. So cultivating a culture is a really hard thing, but I think I found just few tips throughout my journey. One thing is, I applied in many companies right now, building or finding our writing our manifesto. So when I ask to the attendees of a conference or a seminar, how do you build software? They hesitate to answer because they really don't know the answer. I mean, we write code, and we test, we do manual tests, and we deploy it, and later on, and nothing happens. So people really don't have a good answer for that question. How do we build software? But if we write our values and the practices mapped to these values and build a manifesto in the team or in the company, we start to build some discipline. We have to force ourselves to stick to that manifesto. So in many companies, we build our own manifesto. Those manifestos can involve or include pair programming, can include code review processes, can include solid principles if they are building object-oriented principle paradigm, and they can put the way they fix bugs to the manifesto. So, for example, in many of the companies I work, the people just wrote, we fix bugs after we reproduce the bugs in automated tests. First, we write the tests, then we see that the bugs exist, even though it's already in production, and we fix it. And later on, we see that the tests pass, that validates our fix. Then we go to, then we continue the progress to test environment, to staging or UAT, etc. So that list, it is not mandatory to have a big visionary text, but if we write, pair programming is the way of building high quality software. If you write it down, people has to force themselves to learn how to pair effectively, and like they have to shape their daily development habits, like at the end of or during daily scrums. So if you are doing a daily scrum in every day, every morning, most of the time, there's a 15-minute daily scrum meeting. People stand up and talk, and in those daily stand-ups, daily scrums, people ask who wants to pair program with me, like for that specific task or for that specific PBI or story. So if you write down the outlines of the culture, now people start to see the overall picture of the development culture, even though they really cannot achieve all of them because they have no skills yet. Then we start to do internal seminars or internal meetings, like we call it brown bag sessions. I really love the idea of lunch and learn or brown bag sessions idea. It's originally coming from the universities from US. It is first started in a conference. The employees of a company educate their colleagues by doing very amateur seminars, like in meetups. So in a software craftsmanship movement, I really love the idea of a community of professionals. So as an Agile Turkey community, we are doing tons of events, tons of meetups. People talk and many people listen, and we have an interaction, communication, and such, and learning, lots of learning. And the same thing can happen in companies. So, for example, I organized more than 100 meetups in companies already. I have more than 100 meetups in companies, not in communities. So people start to learn the technologies, the topics, anything that they are not very familiar. That makes them feel that they learn something and they feed their passion. Feeding passion is very important for developers. If I lose my passion, I leave the company. That's for sure, because money is important, and if I earn money, I can work in those companies, in many companies. That's of course. However, if I cannot feed my passion, I have no real meaning of being there. Therefore, those internal meetups feed the developers' passion a lot and motivate them. That also improves the way of their looking at the practices, like pair programming or code review. Many people think that code review is very important, yes, but when you give feedback for those guys' code, they start to offense their code, and we cannot go to a real point at the end. Then, if we start to talk about how we can review how we can review or how we should not review. What are the words that we should not use while giving feedback to a developer? If we can talk in the team and we shake hands and we agree on the conclusions, then many problems are eliminated. Developers really love their ego, right? We love our ego. We have tons of ego. And so we have so there is a concept like egoless programming, or 10 commandments of egoless programming.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah. Being egoless is not possible from my perspective. However, so very little ego is essential, because when I completed my work and I want to push my code to the repository, I stop, I breathe again, I free my mind, and I look at my code again, because my ego says that this is your code, and this code should be high quality. I mean, it should obey the best practices, or it should obey some practices that we agreed on.
Like guidelines, maybe.
Yes, guidelines, standards, and such. So the next developer, the developer sitting next to me, which will work on the same code after me, when he looks at my code, he should not say, Lemi messed up the whole code base. I mean, that is the ego that we really need, however, not much. So I really care about being egoless, or having a little ego, and give messages, tons of messages to developers in my team, that leaving our Lego next to the door of the office is important. I'm here to learn something, not to teach. So while we are working together, I try to learn. So if they come with the same mind, all of us will learn. So that's the few points that I start while cultivating a development culture in the teams.
Well, I wish I had $1 every time I think about a good team of engineers really working for the common cause. Really having the same big picture, generating the value based on same principles. I think it's very idealistic, but I have been seeing and introduced with a bunch of teams where it's close. At least if nothing, people do have the passion, and that you said, and I couldn't agree more, that it's a very important component in one's job, for example, in one's role in a team, etc. What I would like to do a summary of the things you said here. It's more or less kind of a little guideline for a company to become agile, which is kind of focusing on the culture first, and only then on the process of really creating code. So let's do a summary, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
So you said a company should start by building or finding or writing a manifesto, which basically means articulating the answer to the question, how do we build software? So they should write down their values and practices that bring those values to life. And this is how you create discipline, which if it's if you create it, it should apply to everybody in the company, which means all engineering teams.
Yes.
You then said that it's very important to promote internal meetings or seminars or brown bag sessions where continuous education happens and employees educate their colleagues, which in turn, and I would like to emphasize this, generates passion, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. And then, only then, and this is where we come to the individual, really, which would be egoless programming, more or less obeying the quote-unquote 10 commandments of egoless programming, and of course, at the end of the day, promoting standards and guidelines.
Yes.
So what you're saying is, if we follow these guidelines, we are likely to get there, to get to a point where people are passionate about the work, people are generating more or less waste-free code. They're happy to do a review. They're happy to do refactoring, pair programming, really improve the way they build products and services, right?
Yeah. So it's a journey, and the most important part of the journey is looking at what we've done so far, and we have to find the way that we can improve things, and we have to inspect and adapt, of course. And we should not be scared of doing experiments, and we have to build an environment where we can do experiments, of course. A safe place, and doing experiments does not mean writing the whole or rewriting the whole application from scratch in a new technology. It's just very simple. Let's make some improvements on daily Scrum meeting, or improvements on doing error handling codes, error handling area, how we can improve them. Let's try this new idea. So it is important for me.
Okay. So you've also given us some advice, which I honestly really appreciate, because it couldn't be better. It couldn't be. It's really what the most important thing is in software development and in this IT industry. Which is, you said two things. One is continuously improve, and two, do experiments. Like, don't be afraid to do experiments. And I would also like to add number 3, which also kind of comes from what you and I have been talking about so far, which is be a software craftsman. Because being a software craftsman does mean adhering to these very big principles of being an individual in an organization and driving change in an organization. I must say, you guys, I don't want to call you agilist because you told me not to, but you guys do inspire people to be the drivers of these changes. And I honestly hope that our listeners will feel at least a bit more enthusiastic about it than before listening to this conversation. I'm very grateful to you for being my guest.
Thank you.
And let me tell you something. If you ever come to Serbia, to Belgrade, you're going to have a fantastic time. All you need to do is let me know, and we'll organize something with the local Agile community. There's a fantastic Agile community here. And we'll do something nice.
Yeah, I heard very good things about the development community, IT community in Serbia in Bosnia Agile Day. I will do my best to come to Serbia. That's for sure.
Well, we'll see. Maybe you'll be speaking on one of the conferences here. There's a lot of them. In the past couple of years, the situation in Serbia when it comes to IT has been exploding. We have a ridiculous number of different communities here, and each and every one of them is working and generates value, generates knowledge. There's really fantastic free education because of these organizations. So
cool.
It's a nice story here, and I would encourage you to join us at some point. And I hope people will reach out after they listen to our conversation. So I'll make sure I link your LinkedIn profile or something. So guys, if you want to reach out to Lemi, go ahead. I'm sure he won't mind.
Yeah, sure. I love. So it's an honor for me to be involved in such a podcast and to meet with you specifically. I really thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, man. So my name is Milor Djekic. I've been talking with Mr. Lemi Orhan Ergin, who is a software craftsman from Istanbul, Turkey, and really an agile enthusiast. Thank you again, Lemi.
Thank you very much.